An uprising on the streets, showing no sign of relenting. Protesters united in their defiance of the regime. As demonstrations continued for a third week, President Mubarak remained unmoved. But how much longer could he ignore the demands of his people and hold on to power? In a day-by-day account, we look at the events that changed Egypt, from those that witnessed them firsthand. Fall of Mubarak, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Information travels in many ways. Opinions constantly formed. Knowledge passes in an instant.
If you want to communicate with those shaping the headlines, this is your chance to ask questions directly to the people making the news. Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Let's remind you of the top stories on Al Jazeera this news hour. Anti-government protests in Libya are widening. Witnesses are talking about a massacre by government security forces in the city of Benghazi. A doctor there has told Al Jazeera she's seen over 50 dead in the hospital she works in. In the city of Baida, east of Benghazi, foreign mercenaries have been seen on the streets. Witnesses have told us that they're shooting live ammunition at demonstrators. Bahrain's opposition groups are expected to put their demands to the Gulf state's crown prince. Anti-government protesters have gathered once again at Pearl Roundabout after riot police left the area on Saturday afternoon. The Egyptian Stock Exchange will remain shut on Sunday, marking 3 weeks of closure due to the country's political upheaval. But Egyptian officials say emergency laws will be lifted within 6 months, and proposals to amend the constitution are almost ready. Those were among demands of the pro-democracy campaigners who ousted President Mubarak more than a week ago. Egypt has also reopened its Rafah border for several hours a day. The crossing was closed during the unrest in Egypt, leaving many Palestinians stranded. Nicole Johnson reports from Rafah.
Opening the gates to Gaza, these Palestinians are happy to be arriving home at last. They were stuck in Egypt during its unrest because the Rafah border crossing had been closed for over 2 weeks. Now Egypt is opening it for 5 hours a day so that more than 4,000 Gazans can return home. But still, no one can leave Gaza for Egypt. Salama Hamada was in Cairo for an eye operation with his son. They were forced to stay an extra week.
The first 10 days, the security was very bad, and we were afraid of the gangs. On the 10th day, we were attacked in our hotel, and then we had to flee.
Others were inspired by Egypt's revolution.
For us as a Palestinian, it was a wonderful experience. Finally, the voice of justice has prevailed, and we should take this opportunity to congratulate the Egyptian people.
While hundreds of Palestinians in Egypt can now finally go home, there are thousands of people stuck in Gaza who are not allowed to leave, not even for humanitarian reasons. And for them, it's a frustrating wait.
I feel very bad. I want to go to my husband because he's sick, and I want to go to my family as well.
Most Palestinians regard Egypt as part of the siege on Gaza. It only allows foreign passport holders, patients and students studying abroad to leave. Hamas wants this to change.
We hope that everything will be open for people here to travel freely to Egypt without limits, without restrictions.
A hope all Gazans are holding in Egypt. Nicole Johnston, Al Jazeera, Rafah.
7 suicide bombers have attacked a bank in the Afghan city of Jalalabad, killing 18 people and injuring at least 70. The attackers were wearing army uniforms when they stormed the building. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack, saying they were targeting intelligence officials and police officers who were collecting their salaries. Counting of votes in Uganda is underway after Friday's election. President Yoweri Museveni is hoping to extend his 25-year rule. Official numbers are expected on Sunday, but early results are projecting a landslide win for him. Mohammed Adao is in Kampala.
President Museveni has taken an early lead in votes already counted and tallied. Election officials say the margin between him and his most formidable challenger, Kizza Besigye, is so wide that President Museveni is on his way to giving himself a new 5-year term in office. That will make his rule of Uganda 30 good years. The opposition have already started complaining. They say the vote is rigged.
And I'm sure you have been shown, many of you, a sample of the predict ballots which were being carried around by some of Museveni's supporters. Predict in favor of Mr. Museveni. These were found out just outside the polling stations.
Security has been tightened in and around the capital city, Kampala, where majority of the opposition supporters are. There are fears that the opposition would bring people out to protest against the victory of President Yoweri Museveni. And the government is saying it's not taking any chances and will not allow any such demonstrations to take place.
A survey by South Africa's Medical Research Council has found that 1 in 4 men there admit to having committed rape. The council works with men and boys trying to overturn prejudices and stereotypes about sexual violence. In part 2 of our series on sex crime in South Africa, Jonah Hull looks at how apartheid is partly to blame.
He was beating her, probably raping her as well.
Even now I'm still shaking. Because since I was born, I never heard kind of sound which was produced by that girl.
South Africa is sometimes dubbed the rape capital of the world. Statistically, a woman is more likely to be raped here than learn to read. Dumisani Rebombo was 15 when he and 2 others gang raped a female pupil at school. A shy boy at the time, Dumisani says he gave in to relentless peer pressure.
These guys have a request and they're thinking you should prove yourself to be a boy just like us. About this girl who thinks she's clever than any other girl in this village because she wouldn't want to date any of them. So as these boys of the neighborhood, we've decided to teach her a lesson. And the lesson is that she would be raped by some of us.
20 years later, Dumisani met his victim and apologized. All she did was cry, he says. Today, he's a gender relations counsellor, running educational workshops, trying to bridge South Africa's gaping sexual divide.
Men are not all monsters, actually. And it's wrong to even go around with the message that way. In fact, in South Africa, we're told that out of 6, only 1 is bad. But the 5 are silent. So if we try and get the 5 to speak up, the better.
Why is rape so rife? Well,